I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational, but that just wouldn't be our style.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary Podcast. I'm here with Zach Franciscus right now. Bob will join us as soon as he can. He's stuck in traffic right now. We decided to do a quick hitter tonight because of the Jerry Dulac article on the Post-Gazette about the Steelers possibly having interest in bringing Najee Harris back and signing him to a new contract before free agency starts. Zach and I were talking in prep just before we got on, and we have kind of differing opinions. I know it's going to shock people, but Zach, go ahead. Give your opinion on what do you think about this?
Well, when I first heard it, I wanted to bring. Well, first of all, I am holding on to this with every bit of hope and energy that I have, because this is everything I was hoping would suddenly come out of nowhere and save me from some heartbreak. So emotionally, very happy. But it was something we were talking. We'll probably spend most of this breaking news talking about is the why of it all. I had to find the rationality behind the why, especially since it seems weirdly backwards. Like, why do you say that you're going to, sign Jalen and, deny Najee's fifth year? But I'm wondering if they did their due diligence, went out there, looked at everything there was in free agency and the draft. And despite a deep draft, due to the scheme, what Arthur Smith can do and all that, they kept coming back to the fact that they have their answers in house, that they just kind of keep trying to find different versions of what they already have in house in free agency in the draft. So why not just keep what you have in house? That's the rationality I could see them doing, because otherwise it's just another example of this team not really knowing where the next step is going before they take it.
Yeah, it's strange on a lot of levels, because you brought up the fifth-year option. I looked it up today. They could have had Najee locked in for $6.7 million guaranteed. That's kind of a steal for him, to be honest. I looked at some of the running back numbers. You got guys like James Conner and other guys making $9 million a season. Najee's going to want more than that. The price starts at $10 million per season for Najee Harris. Do we want to commit $10+ million for multiple seasons to Najee Harris? I don't. I don't even see what you've got needs at quarterback, wide receiver, corner, defensive line, and you're going to sign Najee to $10 million plus before the season, before the free agency starts. This seems a little far-fetched for me. I don't know where this came from. I read the article. I don't think he cited any sources, or this is more like an informed opinion of his. I don't know. It seems far-fetched to me.
You can see that, and Relic, I definitely get this, but I need people to understand when I talk about Najee, I'm not talking about Najee as the guy, like the only guy. I talk about Najee in tandem with Jalen. That's what makes Najee as good as he is, and what makes Jalen as good as he is. Jerome Bettis was not a fast guy, but Amos Zeroway they teamed him up with, Avron Haynes that they teamed him up, and I'm going back to name some guys people probably forgot. That's what made Bettis able to do what he did. What makes Najee do it well, and why he didn't do it well this season, is the predictability of the offense. So I don't put that on Najee. I understand he's not fast. I'm not saying he's fast. I'm just saying we need the Jerome Bettis type just as much as you need the Air Mazeraway type, and we have both there. But I didn't want to agree with you, but I really do on this, that if we have made a $4 million mistake where we could have had him for 6, and now then he's gone, because that's you can't do that. You cannot sign him for that, because Najee, because he's not going to be a workhorse. That if you're going to do that, you sign that guy, that main back. You're signing one of two people.
Yes.
So the only way this happens is if we don't know something, and it's all been worse than we thought, and Najee's actually really cool with the Steelers, and he's going to give a discount. But there's nothing on this Steeler team right now that would show me that he should do that, right?
I just thought of something when you brought that up. And this is just out of left field, so don't.
Yeah.
But what if they're planning on shopping Jalen Warren? And trying to get something back for him, and that's why they're trying to. It's the only thing I could think of is if they plan on trading Jalen Warren for another piece and then bringing Najee Harris back and then drafting someone to go along with Najee Harris, then that makes a little sense. I still don't love the salary. And but what would Jaylen Warren, because he's a restricted free agent, so his salary is going to cap out at like $4 million per season right now, at the most, I would think. So what would Jaylen Warren on $4 million a year bring in trade? That would bring you something back for sure. So I'm just kind of conspiracy spitballing here, but trying to figure out a reason why they would sign Najee at this point.
No, and that's the confusion part. That's why. But the only thing I'll say to that is it matches every single thing this team has done over the last couple of years.
Well, yeah.
No, literally, it would be the blueprint. Just today, I was talking to some of my old coworkers from Steeler Nation about how it's not Najee, it's the Steelers that did it wrong. The Steelers did it backwards. Najee was what we needed. We just needed him 4 years later when we had gotten all the other pieces in line. We did Najee dirty by doing it backwards because we couldn't control ourselves. We were the kid in the candy store that looked up and saw this like, ooh, shiny, and grabbed it, when we needed all the fruits and vegetables first so we didn't get scurvy. We have scurvy now. Thanks, front office. That's great. That's how I feel. But so that's my frustrating thing, because I feel like when people hear me defend Najee, they're hearing the wrong thing. So when I defend Najee, I do it because we did him wrong. Najee, I think, would be a brilliant addition to this team if it was complete. He would be a brilliant addition to, and that's why if he goes to a complete team, we are going to be so mad at what he's able to do there. So
I've said this for a long time. It's not his fault he was a number one pick when he probably shouldn't have been. If he's drafted in the second round, he never catches a lick of criticism. But the Steelers, and this has been my theory all along, they were trying so hard to squeeze one more Super Bowl out of Ben Roethlisberger before he retired. And they figured, let's just draft Najee. We'll get a running game, and that'll help Ben, and we'll be able to win. They're so self-unaware of what this roster looks like, what it is going forward, and they tried so hard. They weren't going to win a Super Bowl with Ben Roethlisberger anymore. That ship had sailed. Once Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell left, it was time to rebuild. It was time to start over. But they didn't want to. They wanted to try to squeeze one more year, so they draft Najee. They draft, they try to plug up the offensive line with so-so guys, and it just fell apart. So I don't know where this goes now. The other part of this is, if you're Najee Harris, we talked about this before we get on, why the hell do you sign a contract before free agency starts?
There's no reason.
You'd be foolish. Unless Mike Tomlin could put some voodoo spell on him and say, come on, Najee, come back, we love you, sign a contract. I don't see it.
That's the whole thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy about this report. Thank you, Dulac. Even if it's just fake hope, I enjoyed it for the little bit my head was above water. But I'm a rational person. I'm a logical person. I really try to look at that and figure. I'm flabbergasted here. It makes no sense at all. Which is why Najee really. If I'm thinking about the best for Najee Harris, I'm saying you need to leave now. Not only have you dealt with number one weight, you have been more consistent than this team has deserved, considering what they've put you through over the last couple of years. So just leave town, because they don't know what this is just me. All these answers might actually be known within the Steelers front office, and they just might not be telling us. But right now, we don't know what we're doing at quarterback. We have no idea what we're doing at wide receiver. We have hopes that our offensive line will be better. We have a defense that looked disjointed at worst and okay at best.
Yep.
And why would Najee want to come back into that for a discount? So none of it makes sense.
And then there's the draft piece of this. A little hint. I had Nick Farabaugh on today talking about the draft. We're going to release that podcast tomorrow. He's in line with most people that say this draft is 30 deep in running backs. 30 deep. So why would you spend $10 million on a running back when you could draft one in the third, fourth, fifth round, probably get similar value, a similar value player in the third, fourth, and fifth round and pay them nothing? As compared to, again, I keep going back. The only way you get Najee Harris to sign before free agency is if you wow him, if you overwhelm him 10, 11, $12 million a season. And they can't afford to do this. So I don't know where Jerry Dulac gets this. You and I were talking. We're not living in Pittsburgh, so we don't know the dynamics of who Jerry Dulac is as a reporter. A lot of his stuff I don't agree with. I don't know where he came up with this, honestly. It flies in the face of common sense, for the lack of a better term. He's just, I don't know. What Relic's got a question for you.
Let's see.
Why do you want Najee to come back? He dances to the next field. I think this. I killed Najee Harris for the first couple of years he was here. I think the Najee Harris hate's gone a little too far the other way. He's fine. He's a good to a little bit better. Probably a decent back. Some of the hate I see from him now, it's gone a little too far.
People need a place to put it. And number one, for anyone who's just listening, I think I made it very, very clear to Najee's bench hitters to not come back. So, Relic, I need you to rewind just for a second and just listen to that part really quick. But I could literally spend an hour and a half. But the problem is, I would need 4 other whiteboards like this, and you would have to have a lot of patience with me because it legitimately is an X's and O's thing about looking at it and the predictability of the offense and the inability to know what personnel is on there and the defense knowing what you're doing when Najee's come. There's so much more going on there than just, hey, Najee's bad. And the simplifying is what's frustrating me. So Najee is not what this team needed when they drafted him. Genuinely, he's not what they need to focus on right now because we're not a running back away, so you don't spend the $10 to $14 million on him. So don't get me wrong, I want Najee back purely emotionally. I've liked Najee since college. I wanted him. It was the first player I called before a draft the Steelers drafted. Weird. There's a bond there, but it's a whole thing. But so
I was all in favor, and when I was doing pods with just Dave at the beginning of the season, I was all in favor for them picking up the 5th-year option. I figured they had nothing to lose. Him and Warren together are a good 1-2 punch. Once my expectations lowered for Najee Harris, I was fine with it. He's not this home run hitting first round back. He's not. So what is he? He's pounding up the middle. Maybe he's not the greatest for the wide zone that Arthur Smith likes to employ, like Tanner Myers just brought up. But he's still good. The two of them together are fine. You can win games with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren at your running backs. That's not that on the list of problems with this offense. That's last. That's last. Believe me. When you have no wide receivers, your offensive line is beat up and crappy, and the quarterback is iffy. If your point to Najee Harris is the problem with this offense, you got it wrong. Can they do better? Sure, they can. They can do better at a lot of positions, and they probably will in the draft.
I would actually. Oh, I don't want to go. This is a little
go ahead
negative, but I'll go there. I'll go there. Do you think this indicates a much narrower road for the creativity in this coaching staff than we initially thought? Do you think that they looked at all the 30 deep running backs, all the ones that I don't know? I haven't looked at running back free agency, but there has to be at least 1 or 2 who aren't terrible. I looked at everyone there and said, our scheme and our abilities are so incredibly specific that we can't change it to match any of the other guys, no matter how talented they might be. So all we have left is the 2 guys we have. That's our narrow road, because every time they veered outside, who knows? I'm not saying this happening. Maybe Arthur Smith went, actually, that specific guy can't do that. It was all what Arthur Smith couldn't adjust his offense to do based on it. So you come back home to the 2 guys who you've had running it the last little bit. That worries me if that's true.
That's the scariest theory of all of them, is that, and one of what Dulac said in the article is Mike Tomlin loves him, and that's why he's probably going to come back. If it's just a thing where Mike Tomlin loves the type of back and we have to have him back, I mean, even you who love Najee Harris can see that we needed more speed at running back. We needed more explosiveness in this offense. If we had, Tyreek Hill on one side and another fast receiver on the other side, and then Najee Harris pounding up the middle, that'd probably work fantastic. But we don't. We have no speed on the outside. Our offense is struggling. We need something different. So if this narrow thing that you're talking about is what is driving this, that's terrifying. But we're already seeing it, right? The band's back together. No coach is fired. The offensive line coach is still here.
And the lack of accountability makes me pretty sure that not much is going to change, because for people, you talked about speed, and I 100% agree. So what I would ask people to do, if when you're going back through things, every time you see a toss to Najee, imagine it was a toss to Warren.
Yeah.
We suddenly succeed. Now, when we run Warren up the middle, or when we run Cordell Patterson up the middle, imagine it's Najee. That's what I'm talking about. Madden-like adjustments to roster, depth charts, and plays couldn't be something I know. These are NFL coaches. We should not be sitting here knowing simplistic changes that they can't do. So that's the frustrating, because all of it was there. The speed, it was there. Strength, it was there. Unnecessary old guy who you should never play, Cordell Patterson was. We had it all.
Not to keep bringing it up, but Nick Farabaugh told me something interesting today that might make you guys feel better, might not. He said that the toss play was one of the checks that Russell Wilson had if he didn't like the call. So all this time we've been hammering Arthur Smith for the toss play in the offense, and it could very well have been Russell Wilson checking to that play and getting out of the what Arthur Smith called, which brings up the other Dulac report where Arthur Smith was frustrated with Russell Wilson and wanted to limit his ability to check out of plays because he's calling the toss play, and Arthur Smith is getting killed for it. So the Steelers' offense is a tangled web of disaster.
And what another terrible look for Russell Wilson. You know what? This right here kind of shows where I don't know if his team is giving up, but something's happening, because this is normally a very tight PR machine, all that. It's very obvious what's going on right now, and he's been caught out. Who was it? I'm trying to remember his name, but it's just frustrating.
What, Glazer?
There's a lot of frustration right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
like I'm losing words as I try to talk.
What's related to the story is the fact that Russell Wilson's not coming back. It's from I saw Diana Rossini today on I forget what show it was. She's saying no, he's not coming back. The Steelers have had it. So it's the more you learn, the more it's starting to make sense. Bob's here. What's up, Bob?
Hello,
Bob. I was just telling Zach that when I had Nick Farabaugh on today, he said one of the checks out of plays that Russell Wilson had was the toss play. And
you're kidding me.
And all those toss plays we saw and how we've been killing Arthur Smith for 6 months on it was actually Mr. Russell Wilson checking out of the plays that Arthur Smith called. So,
well, he is comfortable with that check down.
So we've learned.
I really do.
It gives us hope, right? That maybe Arthur Smith's not as dumb as we thought he was, calling all those toss plays. And, well, I guess you could blame him for not taking it out of the playbook completely and saying no. Well, maybe he tried and Tomlin told him not to. Like I said, this is the offense is a web of disaster that we could be uncovering for years.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, though. I mean, for me, it really makes you wonder was Cordell Patterson in there to run those decoy, like early in the season? Remember where they had that one really nice play where Cordell Patterson circled out and it looked like they were going to throw the screen to him, but then they dumped it a little bit forward to Jalen, and Jalen took off with the big play. I wonder if maybe we've been too hard on Cordell Patterson. Maybe he wasn't there to run a toss play.
I mean, again, it all. I hate to say it, but a lot of the struggles on offense are starting to circle back to Russ.
Yeah.
Instead of but that also circles back to Tomlin, who shouldn't have put him in there in the first place. He just stuck with Justin Fields.
I wonder if I was listening to Kaboli as I was running down the highway to get to you guys. And he was saying there's actually I don't know why, but he was saying there's actually a chance he thinks Russell Wilson could be back.
Oh, come on. Please don't.
Well,
Please don't.
Now his reasoning, and I do think it's plausible, although I hope it's not true, is, hey, I want to keep the options open here. It's just bad business to say, we're not bringing back Russ, and now Justin Fields inflates his price a little bit. Or, hey, let's say Justin Fields does go somewhere else, and you try to sign 9 other quarterbacks who say, fuck you, I ain't coming here. And then all you're left with is Russ. So he said from a business standpoint, not maybe as the 9th choice, but not, hey, I think he'll be back. But he's like, I wouldn't say never. They don't want to close the door on him.
We were trying to figure out what would the Steelers' motivation be for re-signing Najee Harris. Like, I don't know if you have something.
Yeah.
And what would Najee Harris's motivation be to sign before free agency? So this Dulac article has got me confused. I don't know where he bases this on to bring this up, to write an article, to get everybody riled up about this. I can't think of a reason.
Yeah, I don't understand. Sorry, I'm blurring out a little bit. My internet's trying to catch up. I personally, I think that he was fed that from somebody in the building. Maybe Art, because it's always thought of that Dulac is a conduit to Art. That maybe Art puts it out there that, hey, I really want to bring Najee back. And like you and I were talking earlier when the story first came out, do we want Najee back at $9 million? No. I mean, I don't really want him back at all, based on, I don't know if anybody heard Joe Starkey's rant earlier. I mean, he went through a list, and it kind of really hammers home. He said, I'm taking out the obvious. Forget the Mendenhalls, the Willie Parkers, the Jerome Bettises, all those guys. And I'm just going to go through a list. And he said of 80-plus Steelers running backs who averaged more than 4 yards a carry, who had runs over 40 yards. And we're talking names like Chris Fala, Najee Davenport, Frank Pollard, Merrill Hodge. I mean, and he said if these guys had that kind of usage that Najee gets, all of a sudden, now you're looking at it. And then he took it a step further, and I didn't believe this, and I had to look it up. Najee only had 2 runs of over 40 yards in his whole time in Alabama. Yeah. I mean, so from an explosive standpoint, now, like we said, though, I could see a scenario. If you told me we're getting Najee back for $5 million and Jalen for $3 million, and the combined they're making $8 million, and for the next 2 years we got those guys, yeah, okay, I could. I don't think I would love it, but I would at least understand it.
I looked up some salaries today, Bob. James Conner just signed a deal for $9 million plus. Najee Harris's agent's going, if he's making $9 million, my client's like 4 or 5 years younger, and you could argue who's better at this point, but Najee could make an argument he's better. The floor for Najee Harris' contract is $10 million now. $10 million plus. I mean,
and that's too much, even for me who loves Najee. Now, if, like I said, if we were 3-4 years down the line and we were a running back away, like everything is it, then maybe. But even then, the problem is, we always come back to that. The Steelers did Najee dirty by drafting him to be something he shouldn't have been drafted to be, in a situation he shouldn't have been drafted in. So all of that was wrong, because, like we said, second round running back, at this point, it's like, hey, he's an overachieving second round running back. He's doing really well.
Yeah.
That first round thing was it was backwards. And Bob, I was actually today talking to some guys from Steeler Nation about how backwards the Najee thing was. How we needed to draft him 4 years later after we got all of the foundational things, and we grabbed the shiny things. So the wanting Najee back is emotional. The business thing and what's best for Najee, what we said is, I genuinely believe he should leave. If I take my heart out of it completely, it's best for everyone for Najee to leave, especially because I would love what you said about the $5 million and $3 million. But Bob, can you honestly think of a single reason that Najee has to give us a hometown discount at all?
Well, I mean, other than I personally, and if you watch the podcast where we talked about J.K. Dobbins, you know how much shit I gave David over him. honestly, if I'm going to get J.K. Dobbins at 7 or Najee, let's say the market value is right and it's 8 or 9 million, I'm taking J.K. Dobbins. As much as I don't like the option of a broken down, running back who gets injured constantly, and Najee is durable, there's a lot of mileage on those tires. But when I start to look back, it didn't hammer home. When I heard the name Najee Davenport and some of these guys like Walter Abercrombie, Tim Worley, who might be one of the biggest busts in Steelers history, has better stats than Najee. Then I started to think of,
I think really too, though, Bob. To be fair, this has been a historically bad stretch of offense since Najee Harris was drafted. This has been a bad football team on offense. The offensive line's been in shambles the whole 4 years he's been here. I mean, and that first season, they relied on him exclusively for offense. He led the league in touches that year.
Yeah,
like
he had 74 receptions.
He was the whole offense.
Yeah, that's his best statistical year, his rookie year, I think, right?
Yeah, like they beat the brakes off the poor guy. If the Steelers wanted this to work, they could have signed him for the fifth-year option, $6.7 million. You could have had him at 6.7, Warren at 405. There you go. You're good. They chose not to. So now it's too late.
All right. So an interesting stat, and I can't take credit for this because they threw it out. Donnie Football threw it out on the Starkey show. And he let me know, or they let me know, that Saquon Barkley, bad Giants offensive line, he comes in, he gets to 9 100-yard games in his career, the second game of his second season. Najee has 9 career 100-yard games.
Yeah, they're different backs. One's better than the other. That's clear, but
right. But then it becomes and there's a lot of other backs who, if you give this volume of touches to, who are more explosive.
Yeah, we've kind of come to an agreement that they need a more explosive, faster back, just because this offense lacks it.
Yep, and this specific offense, the scheme, the people we brought in, the Canada, the Smith, all that. This is a black hole. Like, I genuinely don't know if, other than like generational, like Tyreek Hill talent or something, you can bring a guy into this and he can excel. And I don't even think Tyreek Hill would, simply because he would have to go so outside of what they wanted him to do to succeed that they would get mad at him for it. So while I agree, Bob, 100% that all the other backs that you meant, those would, if we had a competent offense, would definitely be that successful. But I say you bring them in here. It happens with, like what we're seeing with Pickens. Pickens would probably flourish if he was in Kansas City. He would be what 15, 700. We might be talking about him as like the third behind Jefferson and other. But the black hole of the offense makes me worry about bringing anyone in and then what it would do to their potential about where they could go.
Yeah, I mean, it just becomes a real question of, if Ben is right and it's our talent is better than your talent, does he have the level of talent to overcome? And
not right now, not on offense.
Not the guys in front of him.
Not on offense.
That's because if
you need a burner, the Steelers need a burner.
They need
Other than maybe Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles in his heyday, there's very few backs who would be able to have 16, 700 yards running seasons with the offensive line we have. The best we could get with what we had is consistent, which isn't terrible, and it's something I hang my hat on when I talk about Najee. But that's what we reduced it to, unfortunately.
You look at last year, there were 1,700 yards between Jalen and Najee. But and even Jalen's not, I mean, he, compared to Najee, he's a home run hitter. But
he's not. You're right. He's not the speed guy that we need.
No, Najee is not a home run hitter. I agree.
No, neither is Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren is quick, but not fast.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point. I was wondering the other day if you guys thought that, because when we were talking about home run hitters and guys in the draft, I'm like, Jalen Warren's not a home run hitter. So you guys agree that Jalen Warren, I didn't know if I was alone in that.
No,
he's more explosive than Najee, but he's not, he's not elite tier fast, big chunk running back like these other guys we're seeing now. They need to upgrade the position. And they could do it in the draft. That's the wild thing. Why would you sign Najee? We talked about this earlier, Bob. When you could draft a back, there's so many good backs in this draft. I wonder, part of me wonders if Dulac's just trolling for clicks with this one because he knows, this is going to stir up a hornet's nest. People are going to go crazy about it. I don't see any logic to it. On either side, the Pittsburgh Steelers or Najee Harris, he probably couldn't wait for the season to be over so he could jet out of here.
And
you put him
Bob,
on a team.
Something I brought up.
Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
What? Oh, no. I was. Can I ask you a question real quick, Zach? Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't you think that they thought they were drafting Derrick Henry, and that is why he has not thrived here because he is not Derrick Henry?
Interesting. I was thinking another way. I was thinking similar, but I was about to ask a little bit ago if this was Ben in his last stages of his career wanting a Bettis again. That's what I was wondering. If he was like, I want to finish my career. The Bettis got me to a Super Bowl. Maybe if I had a Bettis guy again, and that's what I was wondering. But Derrick Henry, I honestly think that as well. So, yeah.
I honestly think that was Mike Tomlin, and even the general manager at the time, Kevin Colbert. As much as I love him, I think they were trying to recreate, the Bettis Roethlisberger formula for a Super Bowl, and it was never going to happen. Ben was done. And even if he would have needed a much better cast than they had to succeed his last year or so in the league. And they just didn't have it. It was a waste of time.
Hey, sorry, I got to duck out for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
You're good. Remind me whenever he gets back in, I'm going to ask Bob about the really narrow road of creativity because I'm very interested about his take on that.
I think that's as logical an explanation as any, Zach, to be honest with you.
What do you think about this? What John put?
If they are, that means they actually have intention of signing Najee Harris, which confuses me. Because if they're feeding them this, what's the end game? They must want to sign him, or maybe they want to save face. Is that it?
Yeah, because and this would be a terrible move by the Steelers right now because Russell Wilson's getting caught out every single day by people saying, no, this is PR machine. Is PR machine saying that the Steelers simply need to do nothing to win this. And this would be terrible if they're like, oh, we need to have our own spin cycle. So let's just feed Dulac. That would be horrible bad form, man.
I mean, yeah, you're right. If they say nothing and just let Najee walk, everyone's happy. Because most people are at the point where they're like, all right, Najee's run his course. He needs to move on. We need to do something better. And the Steelers look fine. But for them to feed this to Dulac just to save face, that's not a good look. That's not a good look for him. It's not, they don't need to do that stuff. And Somber asks, have you watched Krosky Merritt? I have not. I will. I'm working my way through the running backs. I watched the top guys today, some of the top guys. So I'm working my way down. I'll get to them though.
We got a bald guy in the chat.
Is there Dave Korob asked, is there a rumored price tag they're trying to keep him for? No, Dulac didn't mention I don't think he mentioned numbers. Dave, we were talking about it.
I didn't hear anything.
It's 9 to 10 million because I looked at last year's the latest contract. James Conner is the comp you want to use. 9 million per season. Najee's going to ask for more than that. He'd be crazy not to. So
agreed.
Set your eyes on 10 million per season. I don't know what the market. I don't know what other teams. Dave said he's a West Coast guy that they might. I don't think he fits. I don't know. Maybe Sean McVay's scheme. I don't know how he'd fit there.
The one thing that I think helped Najee, no matter incredibly, which is why I think he would be insane to sign here, is what Barkley and Henry did. Barkley and Henry this year made everybody want to go out and get themselves a shiny new big running back. And if Najee does not take advantage of this right now, it will be to his detriment. Because if right now, if I am not Najee's agent or if I am Najee's friend and we're sitting here and he's asking what I think the best thing for him to do is, I'm like, you need to go somewhere where you're paid a lot of money and you can legitimately contend and that team is out there. Just wait. Be patient and do not take this bait right here. Now I'm like,
They
if
made a
they
good
come
point.
to you with 15 million, you take that on the
Yeah,
spot.
absolutely.
But until they overpay the fuck out of you, you stay right there. It breaks my heart that I would say that to him because I want to see him in black and gold forever. But exactly, the Raiders would pay out the nose for him.
Yeah.
Like honestly,
Yep.
there's places where he would make the money he deserves considering what he's put up with in Pittsburgh, in my opinion.
Yep.
And that's why the 15 million, I think the Steelers have to pay we're sorry we put you through this shit penalty. And
Yeah,
we
to
can't
sign him
afford
before
that
free
right now
agency
with what we
starts.
have to do.
Absolutely. That's the number.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the running backs right now. Joe Mixon signed for almost 10, 9.8. James Conner's 9.125. And Josh Jacobs, who I think's on another level, signed for 12 million per season. So somewhere between 12 and 9. That's the number. And the Raiders might pay it. I mean, you've got
I
the
would
coach
go as
there
far as to
and
say that Joe Mixon is a more versatile back than Najee Harris is. So
he could be
I'm surprised
considered
he's
that.
paid that little. I'm really
He's a little old.
Joe,
He's a
Joe
lot
Mix-
older.
Joe Mixon terrifies me. Just the name Joe Mixon. So many times
Yeah.
playing him and him wreck. It's a thing I can't get. But yeah, there's.
We got to remember what
It would
Najee's
be
what,
such-
25? He's
Yeah, he's
25 years old.
young. I mean, the
So-
only thing people would be able to say is that there's tread on the tire. But to be honest, most of them were carries that were half a yard. They weren't long carries. They were like 1, 2, 3, 4 yard carries. So yeah, there's tread on the tires, but it's not. The mileage on the car is actually pretty good. So I get your money, Najee. I mean, I'm sorry, bud, but I know my family's going to be surprised to hear me say a lot of this, but I'm trying to think as much without my heart as I can in this particular situation, because if I think with my heart, it's going to be boring because I'm going to say the things over and over the whole time. But yeah, exactly.
The more I think about the Raiders, Pete Carroll's the coach now. He had a running back like Marshawn Lynch, who was obviously better than Najee was, but similar type back, big bruising back. There might be something there. We'll see. I can't think of another team off the top of my head that would jump into that. I'd have to sit down and look at it to see.
It would, and I hate to say this because I somehow would manifest it. Najee would take a discount if Kansas City came calling.
Yeah, probably.
And they don't. And if Kansas City's looking over their shoulder and like, look what Philly's got, look what Baltimore's got. Hey Patrick, you want a shiny new running back? We'll get him for cheap.
The Cowboys need a running back.
Every single part of my heart and soul if Najee went. Oh, Bob, perfect. You're back. So I brought up a point earlier about this situation. I really want to hear your take on it. So I was trying to think the rationality about why, with the deep draft that everyone's talking about, and maybe some free agent guys, all of this, why would we come back to Najee as the best option for what we have right now? And my worry was that the Steeler coaching staff and scheme has such a narrow road of creativity that all the other options were too far outside of their ability to change the scheme, that they kept coming back to the comfortability of, well, it's Najee. What do you think about that? It was off the top of my head. I was curious.
Yeah, I think 1,000,000% based on the I don't know if Nick Fireball, if you guys talked about this, based on the running backs that they're potentially interested in, it's another big slow plotting back, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, if I'm going to behind this offensive line, and I kind of made this point on my couple drafts I've done, I need a one-cut fast running back. I need a guy. Look, are there times where, when you look at Jalen and he just slams up into the line at 1,000,000 miles an hour and gets 1.5 yards, where you're thinking, well, why the hell is he doing that? It's because there's not much there, and I might as well go get what's there. And if I got a guy who, as he's speeding towards the line, all of a sudden in the corner of his eye sees, hey, maybe Mason McCormick made a nice block on the back end, I can cut back and go, then I like a guy like that. But and I think that's what we're sorely missing, because even Jalen is a decisive one-cut runner. I think sometimes he gives up on the hole a little too quickly and slams in there as fast as he can, and it turns out to be a short yardage play. But where I really love Jalen, to be honest with you, and you kind of get a feel of his vision is in the passing game. Because when he catches those little, and I think we missed it this year. It was a huge part of the offense that was missing for some reason, where you throw him the ball a yard and then all of a sudden he takes off for 15. It was occasional, but it was way too little. So that's why, I don't want another big back. I mean, I understand. I love Jerome Bettis. He's one of my favorite guys, but let's face it, Jerome Bettis would break off 40 and 50-yard runs. And, arguably he probably weighed more than I do. And I'm a big fat guy. So, I mean,
that might explain the difference in the offensive lines. I mean, Jerome Bettis ran behind some great offensive lines. Some good ones.
I was about to ask. I was too young to remember, but I was about to ask the kind of offensive line the Steelers had the year that they signed Bettis in free agent. Did we trade for him or did we sign him in free agency?
They traded for him.
They traded for him.
We traded for him. So what was our offensive line? Do we have Alan Faneca, Darmonte Dawson?
Yeah, Faneca was there. Well, not right away. No, Faneca.
Yeah, I don't think Faneca wasn't there.
Yeah, but they had a decent offensive line under Jerome Bettis that I can remember. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I
was just curious. But the general idea was it was a strong unit that he came into and to run behind.
Yeah, and it was kind of after and this kind of if you think about Cowher, I mean, I know everybody associates him with the running game because of everything that happened with the bus, but early in his coaching career, he realized, hey, the running game's okay, but my best shot at scoring points is to let Neil O'Donnell throw the ball. And other than a very painful Super Bowl loss, he was right. And he let O'Donnell throw it around. He let Ben throw it around. He let Cordell Stewart throw it around. He let Tommy Maddox throw it around. So he's not as running game centric as what people think. Noel was the running game centric guy, even though, he turned Bradshaw loose later when they changed the passing rules. So those were guys who were adaptive. Like Noel's first half of his career was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. The second half of the Super Bowl run, it was Bradshaw throw it all over the place. Cowher started off, throw it around, do what we got to do. Then it was, okay, we're only going to run the ball with Bettis because I got Kent Graham, I got Mike Tomczak, I got the bad part of Cordell Stewart's career. And then, okay, I got Tommy Maddox and Ben. I'm going to go back to letting him throw the ball. He still wanted to run it. They were run first, but he wasn't afraid to throw it.
Yeah. Getting back to Najee's value in the open market, I just wonder, I just thought of this while you were talking, is the fact that the draft is so deep, does that drive his price down a little bit? And I'm looking at the free agent list. And I misspoke before. Najee Harris is almost 27, not 25. I wanted to correct myself.
Yeah. He's older than J.K. Dobbins, David.
Those are two important years, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Aaron Jones is the top guy in free agency. Jeff Wilson, A.J. Dillon. Nick Chubb's interesting, but he's coming off a major injury and not a great season.
That would be
Javonte Williams is 25. And he is...
Just to jump in real quick, just in case you missed it, David, if you weren't on, I said I'd rather have J.K. Dobbins than Najee Harris. So there you go.
That was
I don't know.
It's been a fun day.
I said it, I think, on the last podcast. I'm fascinated to see what Najee Harris gets in the open market. I'm going to be fascinated to see what he ends up with.
I don't think it'd be very much. I mean, don't get me wrong. Somebody would pay him. He'll probably make more than he would have made on the franchise tag. Like, the whole, we made a huge mistake on the franchise tag. If it would have been like 6.5, if we were re-signing him for 2 years, $15 million, okay, big deal. It was $100,000. It's not a huge enough difference to where you care. Now, if they signed him for 9 and they could have had him for 6.5, number one, it's the dumbest deal they could possibly do. But number two, then yeah, it looks bad that you didn't franchise him.
That's just the $3 million for shooting yourself in the foot. That's what you just
especially when you can draft a guy for, in the second round for $1.5 million.
That's the
maybe
confusing thing.
And
you can get a guy in the fourth for what, $400,000 or $500,000.
Yep.
Yeah, you could just throw a rock. You hit a running back that's viable in this draft. Why? It's the confusing thing that on many levels, I'm frustrated that they're doing this, because if this is bullshit and it's going to amount to nothing, I'm trying to keep my hopes down. It's not working because I'm desperate for any hope on this front. But if it's just not a good look for the franchise. It's a yo-yo look, and it's the same kind of chaos, and we don't know what's going to happen next. That has been plaguing for a bit, and it's concerning.
Yeah, I I look at these guys, and I know you guys. Let's say he somehow fell to the second round, because I would be really upset. I don't care how good everybody thinks he is, Ashton Genty. If he goes and runs a 4.4 at the combine, he's probably going to go in the first round.
He's going in the first round. I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, I think if he runs a 4.45 or above, he goes to the second round. 4.45 and below, and especially if he breaks a 4.39 off.
Some people are saying he can run 4.3. Yeah, that's what I've heard. The rumors are. So forget about him. It's the North Carolina kid's next. I watched him, Omari something Hampton. I get his last name's Hampton.
Omarion,
really good. Yeah, really. I was really impressed by him.
Samson.
There's backs all up and down this thing. So I just don't see. I don't know where Jerry Dulac got this. We were talking. If the Steelers fed him this, why? What's the end game to that?
It's an interesting dynamic, and you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. If it's true that Dulac is Art's mouthpiece, that he gets his stuff from Art, and he breaks off that he wants to do that, and we know Mike Tomlin likes Najee. Are you almost marginalizing Omar Khan to the point where he goes, hey, look, am I the general manager or not? Because if I'm not, if I'm just here to sit here and, pull off a couple of trades, and now all of a sudden, because I pulled off a couple of trades and we got some good players because of it, that, hey, now we're content, we don't want to do any more, or a guy like Andy Weidel, at this point, is it damaging him to continue to be associated? If they re-sign Najee Harris, I'm the assistant general manager. I got my future. People are going to be looking at me like, what did you guys do? And I've either got to sit there and kiss to death for when I'm interviewing for a job and say, well, it wasn't my fucking call. I told him it was stupid. Or, yeah, well, we thought we were going to get either way. You ain't getting a job because you either bashed your former employer or you admitted you were incompetent.
John Berg asks a good question. Is this an Art Rooney thing? Does Art Rooney love Najee Harris and want him back? And he's saying, he's pulling his owner card and saying, I want Najee Harris back, make it happen. And he's feeding it to Dulac.
If that's true, that's so juvenile. It's like handing notes in class. I'm sure you know where each other's offices is.
Well, the Ireland thing's done now, so you can stop worrying about that. That was number one concern. Now, number two concern is bring Najee back and keep Mike Tomlin here. And
And in fairness to the Steelers as an organization, Mike Florio brings this point up all the time. They have operated this way for decades. Nobody takes credit, so nobody gets the blame.
Yep. Ted makes a point that I think is somewhat valid. I do think Omar Khan loves Mike Tomlin, and they're in lockstep. And if Mike Tomlin says jump, Omar says how high.
We kind of talked about this heading into the season from the draft. I kind of disagree with that, Ted. I think Omar understands that right now, from a power play perspective, he probably doesn't have the upper hand. But I feel like the draft process with Andy Weidel, that Tomlin has started to lose some of his I want this guy, because when you look at the guys they're taking, it seems to have Weidel's fingerprints all over him. Pick an offensive lineman. It was a long time before we picked a previous
tackle in the first round.
With a tackle, or even the last offensive lineman in the first round before Broderick and Fatano, regardless of how you feel about him, David Castro. Yeah. He's a decade. I mean, they went a long time without drafting people. And think about from a center perspective. I mean, the Steelers are built around the center, and it took us 4 years now to get Zach Frazier, who looks like a long-term replacement, and so happy we got that guy. but we went through some pretty ugly stuff.
Mhm.
So
I think they got a little arrogant. I think they thought when Villanueva hit as an undrafted free agent, they thought they could just grab anybody and plug them in, and we'll make it work. And that doesn't work. They got lucky with Villanueva. They got lucky a couple other times. You need to draft talent along the offensive line.
No,
Go ahead,
for
Zach.
one reason or another, which we'll never know, it's a mystery. I need reminded of some Steeler information really quick. Omar Khan, before he became general manager, he was part of the organization, but in what capacity? I just
He was
need
the cap
reminded.
guy. He was
Well,
the
Okay,
salary
so
cap.
assistant GM, though, right?
what I'm curious
Yes.
about is, and yet again, just speculating, if there might have been a little bit of not lying, but gilding the lily when he was being talked about moving up, and they were like, bring in Andy Weidel and we'll be all good, you'll have say in this, and it's going to be you and Mike Tomlin, you'll be a partnership, and then they get here, it's all signed, and they're like, too late, Mike Tomlin's show, can't do much about that now, guys, sorry. And they're just kind of because I can't imagine those two guys with what they seem to operate like are perfectly okay with what's going on with the team, with the roster they're trying to construct a certain way.
I think
it's been Mike Tomlin's show for years, going back to
Yeah.
Colbert. I think he superseded Colbert at some point and became the number one guy for player acquisitions. And it's been a downhill
I
slope
get that.
ever since.
Could explain the decade of just horrible draft choices.
Yeah, you don't just lose your touch like that, like out of nowhere. I think
Good point.
it became more of a collaboration. I think they were, they drafted defensive players like 10 years in a row trying to prop this defense up. They're trying to make. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
They were trying to prop. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You go.
All right. They were trying to prop up Mike Tomlin's defense because I think deep down, Kevin Colbert said he's not a great strategist. He needs a Pro Bowler at every position to be successful. So I'm going to draft a defensive player in the first round every year. And they had Antonio Brown, they had Le'Veon Bell, they had Ben Roethlisberger, so they could kind of fake it on offense and just load up the defense because, we talked about Mike's strategy 1,000 times. It's just not there.
And for my man Ted here, sure they got the O-line, but Tomlin got his wide receivers. I'm going to throw a little conspiracy theory at you because Omar Khan has only drafted one wide receiver. It's Roman Wilson, who didn't get on the field this year.
Roman Wilson.
Maybe he wasn't the wide receiver Tomlin wanted, so I don't know anything. This is just a guess. Maybe out of spite, he just said, "Yeah, you can't jump on a moving train."
Some kind of power play. Tomlin wants to put Omar Khan in his place. That's super interesting. We're down a rabbit hole, but that's.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's true. I hope it's not true.
Yeah.
But I know it's the off season. News reports and rumors will fly around and all this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of chaos right now, and if this really is Art trying to get a message or the disjointedness, the high school of it all, I'm really hoping that all of this just turns to this is just smoke to make people think that we don't know what we're doing, and then we hit the draft and we know exactly what we're doing and it's great, but there's literally nothing, no evidence at all that points to that right now.
Well,
that's what's concerning.
It reeks a mom and pop shop, which
it is.
The thing you love about the Steelers most of the time is that it is mom and pop. It's not corporate. It's not, even though Dan Rooney was as cold as they come with getting rid of people, but you love the stories of the chief taking care of Rocky Blyer and things, and it's not, they've taken care of Shazier. It's the thing we love, but it's also the thing we hate because at this point we need some. Hey, let's add on 20 guys.
Wild Herb says Najee signed 3-year outside listed $24 million, $8 million, 2-time guaranteed, avoidable. He's laying out some kind of contract here.
Yeah. Oh, is this what you're suggesting, Wilder?
$8 million per season, still kind of.
That's a $2 million mistake.
Yeah,
it's
still a lot
still
of
an
money.
error we're paying for.
With the draft being so deep and everything else, I mean, it's time to move on. We all know it. The only person that doesn't know it is maybe Mike Tomlin and not Rooney. So we'll see what happens.
I've already worked really hard to come to accept it, so you guys better not do this to me now. I swear to God.
All right, we said we're going to spend 30 minutes on this. We're almost an hour in. Any last thoughts before we kick out?
No, I mean, thanks for everybody for jumping on.
This has been great.
Awesome chat. You guys spur of the moment. I don't know if Dave, we've alluded to it. Dave did an interview with Nick Farabaugh. That'll be out over the weekend. Yeah,
a lot of good stuff on the draft on that. We're going to keep trying to do this. If some big news breaks or something interesting breaks, we'll try to hit it right away. And then we'll do a more comprehensive thing on Monday, our regular Monday, Thursday shows. Just because, there's 5 of us, so we have the flexibility to do this. If 3 of us or 2 of us are available, we can hit it and hit the story right away. It'd be fun. Thanks for everybody in the comments. Go ahead.
Is it concerning that we know how to use our personnel better than Arthur Smith?
Possibly, yes. Possibly, yes.
We don't know that anymore. Maybe we know how to use our personnel better than Russell Wilson.
Yeah, we don't have Russell Wilson calling audibles on us, so we're good. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for being in the chat. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. That really helps us out a lot. The QR code's back above Zach there. Get some Steelers Sanctuary merch. That'd help us out a lot.
Yes.
And until Monday, thanks for listening to Steelers Sanctuary Podcast.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.